Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon to everyone tuning in. Welcome to the Singapore Geospatial Week Plus 2020, an event organized by GeoWorks, Singapore Land Authority's Geospatial Industry Center. We are pleased to bring to you 2 weeks full of geospatial webinars spanning across various industry tracks and international speakers. My name is Azhar, and I will be your host for this panel session. Today, we are excited to bring to you our Mobility and Logistics Industry panel titled The New Economy for Mobility and Logistics. With us today, we are joined by 5 wonderful speakers. Let me introduce them. We have Wuran, COO of AI Robotics, Karthikeyan Shanmuganandam, Head of New Business and Enterprise from Ericsson, Sriram, Iyer, Head of Product, Geo and Enterprise from Grab, Hossam Bahlool, General Manager, Navigation from Mapbox. So Hossam is actually joining us from the US. And lastly, we have Xander van der Heijden, CEO of UNL. Before we begin, if you have any questions during the webinar, please leave them in the Q&A box and we will answer them towards the end of the webinar. So without further ado, let me start. So currently we are living in interesting times. We had not expected a pandemic that practically has changed our landscape almost overnight. And it has brought about major impacts to logistics and mobility, the way people travel, the way people buy things. More people are working from home, resulting in a drop in people commuting to work either with their own vehicles or public transit. Ride sharing as well got a hit. More people are ordering food, groceries, and shopping online. Personal mobility devices have also become more popular. In fact, personally, I've seen bicycles are becoming more popular. Bicycle shops are doing a roaring trade. Bikes and bike parts are running out of stock very fast. Used to be masks and sanitizers that got out of stock, but this time around it's bicycles. So even though our economies are slowly and cautiously reopening and recovering, some experts say that these trends are almost becoming the new normal. There has been recent reports talking about redesigning or repurposing our roads to adjust to the coming new economy, brought about by advances in AI, sensors, electrification, and high-speed networks. The last mile has been termed the holy grail of logistics as well as mobility. We are starting to see companies like Amazon investing heavily in delivery vehicles and drones to address the last mile as a means of competitive advantage. Also, companies like Tesla and Waymo betting on self-driving vehicles, and many more startups working on autonomy in both logistics and mobility. Businesses are always seeking to increase revenues and reducing costs. One of these major costs are actually transportation costs. What are some of the strategies or new technologies that these businesses can use to reduce such costs and address the last mile? And if we talk about geospatial, what makes up the key ingredients to address this last mile strategy? Perhaps we can kick off this discussion with Wuran from AI Robotics. Wuran, please.
Thank you, Azhar. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Wuran, COO of Iyer Robotics Technology. We are a Singaporean deep tech company that built vision-based perception technology for self-driving. Our customers are Geofence Premises. It includes hospitals, warehouses, airports, and logistics centers, where millions of mundane tasks are done by humans. Our technology is to release the humans from those tasks. Today, I'm so delighted to have the chance to talk with you about mobility and transportation. So much has changed. We found ourselves each sitting physically distanced, staying home instead of traveling to attend Geospatial Week, adapting to a new formality. COVID-19 impacted almost all industries across the world. Some are devastated, like tourism and travel. Some are accelerated, like online shopping, video conferencing, automation, and robotics. For public transportation, in Singapore alone, ridership and revenue has dropped by 80% for buses and trains during the circuit breaker. The question we're asking ourselves are totally different. What does the demand for people and goods travel look like? Will there ever be significant demand for travel again? Is it safe to travel? These are the most imminent questions today, but no one knows when we can go back to the way we lived and worked. On the other hand, we've seen an increased amount of mobility and transport demand in off-road transportation. Let me share with you one slide. So this is what we call the geofenced premises. What's the definition for geofenced premises? It means any closed and controlled environment with clear traffic rules and repetitive driving operations. They suffer today from manpower shortages and high operational cost, more so in the post-pandemic world. For example, the surge in online ordering took off after lockdown. As warehouses are unable to cope with extra volume, it led to obsolete and excess stock. They had no choice but to throw them. Reliable and safe self-driving solutions exactly addresses this pain point. This is what AI robotics does. Recently, we've also seen more interest and inquiries from the industry on autonomous driving solutions. The technology innovation as well as adoption has no doubt been accelerated. It has become the post-pandemic reality. If you're interested, later today from 3 to 3:30, my colleague and I will share more details on the topic of how Geofence Premises benefit from fully autonomous driving solution. We'll walk you through some real-life use cases, videos, and business savings. Back to you, Azar.
Hi, Asa, can you unmute yourself? We can't hear you.
Thank you very much, Wuran. So let's have our next speaker. Can we have Karthikeyan?
Hey, thanks, Azar, for the introductions, and also thanks to Wuran. Can you guys hear me?
I think the sound, yeah.
Oh, now you are. Okay, all right.
Okay.
It's myself as well. Thanks, Azar, for the introductions, and also thanks, Wuran. I think she spoke fantastic about what's happening today in terms of the autonomous driving and also where the last mile is headed. I think she also spoke about how important the technological change is and what's happening today. Let me just kind of introduce myself. So my name is Karthikeyan, and I'm heading the new business and enterprise segments for Ericsson, and I'm based in Singapore. And one of the key things that we're looking at is how the technological change is happening in the transport sector and the logistics sector, and 5G especially, it's kind of still new, and how the industry is adopting to 5G. While we were, talking to the industry experts, we do realize, like the way Vuran said, it's important in this COVID times how to automate a lot of their current work, especially because of the human shortage, or maybe because of the social distancing and all that. We do believe that the Industry 4.0 it's somehow luckily got kicked off this year, and that brings us to a whole lot of challenges from technological standpoint. How let's say the mobility is going to be addressed. So we all know that autonomous vehicles, or be it any transport for that matter, it relies completely on mobility. So that means the vehicle going from one location to the other location has to latch on to different base stations in a telecommunication world. So we also understand that a lot of this transport sector is completely going digital today, and are obviously expected to come with connected mobility services, including connected cars, including the platooning. If you look at logistics, platooning is the way to go nowadays. We've seen that happening from Scania to Volvo. Many people are adopting it. So platooning from a logistics perspective, and also connected car from a consumer perspective, it's all getting started. And let's say what's really important is that if there is a connected car, and if the awareness about the environment is very key, right? How do we get that into the connected car, or autonomous vehicle? Is by connecting all the dots, connecting environmental sensors, collecting that information, uploading it onto the cloud, and processing it in the cloud, and send it back to the driver. Either it's a driver, or it's autonomously driven or remotely driven. Regardless, the vehicle has to have that information in real time. So the uploads from the vehicle, be it the cameras fitted onto the vehicle sides, for autonomous vehicle, or it could be the environmental sensors, sending all the way the real-time videos upload and download. It makes a huge network crunch. So that means that the existing telcos have to be geared up to do this. So 5G helps in a way that it brings almost all the processing and the computation to the edge. So you have edge computing. What happens is that the car or the vehicle that's connected talks to the nearest edge. And also with 5G, what happens is that there is something called make before break. What happens is that earlier, in the previous technologies, usually the communication breaks for a while before it gets re-established when the vehicle moves from one base station to the other base station. So if the moving vehicle cannot have the reliable communication, then it's kind of not really safe. That means that it cannot make decisions on the fly in real time. So that's important, that 5G kind of bridges that gap. Yeah. So that's what we're gonna witness. We are seeing that already in 2020, and a lot of industry players have already started adopting 5G. So my role is to also get the industries up to speed on 5G. And we are into this, leading this along with the industry consortiums like the AECC and also the 5G AA. These are some of the consortiums we are part of. And a lot of other industry players are also coming together to get this sustainable and autonomous driving in the future. And just last few facts about autonomous vehicles itself is that it not only helps in the OPEX reduction for the logistics player, for example, like many claim that the reduction is possible, OPEX reduction is possible with 60% reduction is possible with autonomous vehicles, but also the fact that it reduces the emission. So the CO2 emission goes down by 90%. So these are all facts, and we've done the studies in the Europe, and hopefully we will obviously the other countries will also come together to adopt to this kind of technology. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks, Zoran, back to you.
Thank you, Karthikeyan, on giving us some of your opinions on the importance of networks, especially the reliability of networks when it comes to operating connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, because I think you have a lot of data, a lot of videos coming in, especially sensor data needs to be processed almost, I would say, real time for vehicles to make those decisions, or even back in the control centers. It could be probably controlled by some of the operators, and these operators definitely need almost real-time information to actually react to certain conditions, maybe even take over controls of some of these connected vehicles. So thank you so much, Karthikeyan. With that, let's move on to our next speaker. We have Sriram Iyer. So Sriram is from Grab. So I think we're going to get some interesting opinions from a user point of view, because Grab being a ride-sharing company, not just ride-sharing, but also food delivery, I think it will be very interesting to hear what Sriram has to say on this topic. Over to you, Sriram.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and thrilled to be part of this, excellent panel with experts in the field of geo and technology. Right, Azhar, you gave the game away a little bit. Yes, I am a product manager by trade, and so I like to talk about the customer. Right, a little bit of introduction. I lead the product and operations teams for geo at Grab here. We provide geo and location-based services to all of other Grab's businesses: transport, food deliveries, package deliveries. We have Mart now. Our financial services have started using some of our location-based services, and so on. Right. My team, and thanks to them, I see some of them on the participant or the attendee list here. They build a fantastic set of capabilities for mapping Southeast Asia, and then building key services, locations, routes, ETAs, navigation, a bunch of things that are all consumed by these other teams at Grab here. Right. The point that I'd like to talk about the consumers is related to COVID, but also applies in general. Right. COVID has been definitely hard for a business like Grab. Its transport business has suffered with all the lockdowns in Southeast Asia. Interestingly, the food business has grown significantly. Right? People have been stuck home, but they would like to order food because they don't want to go out and eat and expose themselves to dangers potentially. Right? While this business has ramped up, the transport business has tried various means to keep it manageable. We have X number of drivers who supply food and service delivery drivers, if you will, right? Whereas demand has scaled exponentially, right? And there are a bunch of optimizations that our food teams have to do, like, for example, batching, right? But the point that I'm trying to make is these things that businesses that consume our geo services do have an impact on how we serve the customer from a geo and location standpoint. The case in point here being the estimated times of arrival that we offer, right? That differs widely based upon if an order is batched or not, based upon if an order is being delivered by a runner who is walking and picking up something from a wall across my home, or by someone on a bicycle or a motorbike or a four-wheel even, right? And so all of these things make a significant impact on how we build these services for location. And the meta point also being that, these things will become more and more compounded as businesses strive to serve the consumer. So we need to get closer to the consumer ourselves. And the consumer for me is actually not the transport team or the food team. It is the actual eater who orders food and who expects his food to be delivered in 30 to 40 minutes. And that is the consumer that I risk making unhappy, right? And so I need to look at behavior for a consumer and not just for the business that I'm serving, right? And that has been a key part of how our team builds our geo and location-based services, right? We understand driver behavior, we understand merchant behavior, right? Merchants, when somebody places an order, sometimes they start cooking immediately because it's it's something which is easy to prepare, low cost, right? But if it's a large order, they wait till the driver actually shows up at their shop. because they're not sure if the person is going to cancel, and have they prepared a large order and is going to go waste, right? So these are the kind of signals that we need to garner from our customers and build into our geo services, right? So that we ultimately end up satisfying the promises that we make our customers, if you will. Right? One last point I'd like to add is gathering these signals is best done from the consumers themselves, right? If a person receives their order late, we can get a signal from them saying that, hey, you know what, actually this package was delivered to my neighbor in the wrong address, and that lets me fix a POI, right? Or the driver says, hey, you know what, this road is currently closed for construction. Can you route me through the other way, right? And so the product manager in me it makes me say that, the consumer is king in this space, right? If you want to serve the consumer well, right, you better get to know that consumer really well. And so thanks again for the opportunity, Azhar. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Karthikeyan. That's a very interesting point of view, where you mentioned that the customer, the end user, is actually the key, or rather the customer experience. When exactly, knowing when exactly they will know, they will know when the food will arrive, and whether the food will arrive hot or cold. So I've had a few experiences on food delivery, and sometimes you get a message saying that food is being cooked already, and you wait for another half an hour, and by the time the food arrives, it's already cold. So I agree with you pretty much that I definitely the customer experience is very, very important. Where it comes to deliveries, not just food, but also e-commerce deliveries. And especially now, people are more demanding, and they want, almost immediate delivery within the hour, within the half an hour. Even not just on for food, but also for products that they order through e-commerce stores. Okay. Thank you.
Hopefully use Grab Food, and if you have any issues, you know who to call.
Of course, definitely will look for you. I'll give you all the feedback you need. Thank you so much, Karthikeyan. Up next, we have Hossam Bahlool from Mapbox. So over to you, Mr. Hossam.
Great, thank you, Azhar. And thank you everyone for attending, and it's very exciting for me to be here with this amazing panel talking about this critical topic, especially given what's happening all around the world. So first, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Hossam. I run the navigation team here at Mapbox, based in California in the Bay Area. So it's slightly late for me this time, but I was so excited about being part of this panel that I was looking forward to this day. So in terms of the area that I focus on, it's all about navigation and optimization for companies that use location services, whether those are automotive companies, delivery companies, any company that wants to visualize location on a map and present the data in a geographic or geospatial format. So as a lot of my colleagues before me spoke about, there's definitely been a huge uptick that we've seen in specific areas of our business. There's definitely the businesses that took a hit when it comes to tourism, for example, and travel. But then there are other parts of our customers that have seen this unprecedented growth that's happened over the last several months. Now, e-commerce in terms of online ordering and curbside pickup and delivery and so on isn't necessarily new. E-commerce has been on the rise has been on a rapid rise for the last 5 years. What COVID did was drive even more of those kind of behaviors. And so what we see is this longer term trend that got accelerated over the last several months. And I believe that a lot of these behaviors that people are doing right now of ordering food online, ordering products online, doing curbside pickup is not a temporary blip. These are behavioral changes that people are realizing the convenience of these approaches. There are, not to say that there won't be brick and mortar shopping, but the convenience aspect can't be ignored. And so what we do is we work with companies that aim to figure out how to scale their operations in order to hit these different types of this growth pattern. Whether it's drivers that need to be hired and trained quickly to navigate, to drop off and pick up packages or groceries, parcels that need to get delivered more efficiently to a wider variety of addresses, the optimization experience that Sriram was mentioning earlier. These are all key challenges that we look to enable. And essentially, Mapbox offers these building blocks that enable you to do that. So there's three main areas that we've seen the impact of COVID on. Number one is purely the sheer number of deliveries and pickups that our customers are doing. We see companies whose business has doubled, tripled, quadrupled. A popular company in the US called Instacart was reporting 500% jump in their order volume. Delivery Heroes was experiencing 2x year-over-year growth for Q1. Shopify, another popular e-commerce company, almost 50% revenue growth in Q1 and Q2. So these are all massive impacts for the company. And the question is, how do they scale then their business to hit the business metrics that they have? And those business metrics could be related to what's the cost per pickup or per package delivery, what's the efficiency of drivers as they're going about their daily routine, and how can they ensure that they hit those metrics and not go up against have their cost of goods sold spread out or increase dramatically. And some interesting stats where there was a recent article about UPS, one of the largest delivery companies here in the US, where their CPO was saying that by simply reducing 1 mile per driver off their route on a daily basis, that equates to $50 million in savings. And it equates to 350,000 more packages that are delivered per year. So these are massive increases where you can get with very small optimizations. So the question is, how do you do that in a way while also hiring additional drivers? And those are some of the challenges that we work with companies on in terms of providing them turn-by-turn navigation and optimization capabilities. The other aspect is related also to this influx of new drivers that are coming on. So again, looking at some of the larger American companies like Amazon, Walmart, CVS. Amazon announced they're hiring 75,000 new warehouse workers as well as drivers. Walmart announced 50,000 additional drivers and warehouse workers. So if you think about the sheer scale that you need to deal with as you're bringing in all these new drivers, ensuring that they know how to get to their destinations very efficiently, those are critical components from a profitability and customer satisfaction perspective. Even the drivers themselves, as they're going about driving with all these new drivers, how do you make sure that they stay safe on the road? The costs related to the driver, like insurance, speeding tickets, vehicle wear and tear, how do you optimize for those kind of variables to make sure that, again, you're meeting the customer need, but also doing so in a way that makes sense for you as a business? And then the third area that we've seen a shift in as well, that we work with a lot of our customers on, is around this concept of curbside pickup, or buy online and pick up in store. So this is another huge increase that's happening, where if we look at the top 100 retailers, for example, in North America, over 95% of them have mobile applications where you can order, or at a minimum, they have a website that you can do. And what we've seen is a lot of these companies that they expect curbside pickup and buy online or pick up in store to account for more and more of their percentage of the amount of the deliveries that they're doing. So 60% of them, based on a recent survey by a research house called Retail Me Not, said that they're expecting this curbside pickup to increase. And going back to Sriram's point around focusing on the buyer, 85% of shoppers said this would motivate them to buy more. So again, if curbside pickup is an extension of your brand in the store, how do you make sure when someone drives into the parking lot, they're not waiting for a long period of time, the length of the line is short, the throughput that you're getting them in is high, and the staffing levels to be able to serve this and have this SLA is kept at the right level. So these are some of the changes that we've seen that we enjoy tremendously working with our customers on. So with that, I'll wrap up and hand it back to you, Azhar.
Thank you very much, Hossam. Very interesting feedback or opinion from the US side. I think I think it's quite evident that e-commerce definitely has been driven up. The face of the industry has shifted due to COVID-19. More and more people are buying online, and we have what you call curbside pickups. But I think what is very, very key for businesses to scale up and improve their efficiency is actually having a lot of data, of every single delivery, every single curbside pickup, the wait times, routing optimizations, and so on. So as what you've mentioned, by UPS saving 1 mile for a delivery, they can save millions of dollars. I think that is definitely the reality for companies that really want to compete. They want to reduce their costs. They want to improve the customer experience. Yeah. So thank you very much, Hossam, for that great insight on the US side of the current situation right now. So next we have Xander. So over to you, Xander.
Still muted. Oh, sorry. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me on this panel, and very interesting colleague speakers. I prepared something, but I will change my presentation as what I heard and the insights that were shared before me. I think we have something interesting to share. So a short introduction of myself, Xander. Stuck on in a quarantine hotel at the moment, so this is a new experience for me, talking from a hotel room during a quarantine moment. So it's also reflects the current situation in the world where we're in, impacting the topic that we discuss and we are discussing. I'm the founder and CEO of UNL. We are building a global addressing and naming system, powering the Internet of Places. We're a smart addressing platform. What everybody forgets is that 75% of the Earth is not addressed, and 4 billion people are without an address. And even that number is even higher if you consider verified, trusted addresses. And it's easy to forget how important an address is. But if you reflect it to e-commerce and having access to essential services, you need to have an address to receive a package, or to be picked up by a Grab, or even if we're talking about autonomous driving, drones flying around, they need to land on a specific address. And this is what we are solving with UNL. And this is important if you think about last mile, and we're talking even about last meter. If you're talking about e-commerce and logistics, supply chain, navigation, routing, planning, you need to connect the dots, and it starts with giving every location in the world a location ID, where you put addresses into or data into context of that specific location, that you can use that data to optimize routing or optimize navigation or your planning and supply chain. And if you look at companies that were mentioned already, like Amazon, that own their supply chain, they have an integrated supply chain. They own the data from factory to doorstep. They can optimize their supply chain because they have that data. They can track the consumer behavior, and they can provide the optimal customer experience. But a lot of retailers, brands, logistical companies are not tech-first companies. And they're logistics or retail or brand, but they need to collaborate within the supply chain to create the same experience as an Amazon. And that's where you need to have a digital infrastructure, where you allow these different stakeholders to collaborate, to share this data, to optimize the supply chain, and specifically last mile. And if we zoom into last mile, as I've learned in the last years, a large part of the cost is consumed by the last mile. And of course, and you already shared, you have a certain expectation of the consumers where they want to have same day delivery or same hour delivery, or they want to freely return their products. logistics is not free. It's a large part of the whole supply chain. And this whole expectation sort of made it a big challenge to really provide for sustainable solutions in the last mile. If you look at sustainability, what will become a more and more essential topic in solutions providing last mile logistics. If I see, for example, in Singapore, my experience where you have deliveries coming to your apartment, they drive for individual orders, they drive 10 times to my apartment instead of collecting the orders and fulfill that whole order in combination would be much more sustainable, much more healthy for the climate. So it's an interesting, there is interesting times, especially I see geospatial tech becoming more and more important to solve these challenges, to overcome these challenges. And I think what we are doing is building an essential part of that whole supply chain, providing any location and anyone in the world with a location ID. But I am planned in for a presentation at 4 this afternoon. So if you want to learn more about what we're doing and how we look into the geospatial domain, I'm happy to to provide my presentation at 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xander, for that. So probably just to summarize what you have just spoken about, having a location and address is one of the key factors in addressing that last mile. So businesses need to know where the delivery needs to go to in a precise manner, and it could happen anytime. Even the delivery locations could change maybe at the last minute, and I think having a precise location of the end destination or the delivery destination is pretty much a very key factor in providing that great customer experience. Okay, so thank you very much for all the insights that all the speakers have given us. So I think we can start getting some questions from the audience. And in the meantime, I do have probably a couple more questions that I'm going to open up to the floor to probably give their quick answers. So the question is, with a lot of talk on autonomous technology or robotics, the landscape of transportation or logistics will be changing in the coming years. So what are some of the key challenges for a city to embrace such a technology, and how can businesses prepare themselves for this? So I'm going to leave the floor open to any one of the speakers who would like to answer or give their 1 or 2 cents.
I'll share some of my
Sure.
thoughts. There are 2 parts to it. Number 1 is the public transportation. Number 2 is the geofence premises. So when you look at public transportation and plus autonomous driving technology, the challenges is multiple. So not only you need to have a reliable and safe technology, but you also have to deal with the insurance. Meaning if you have an accident, who's the fault then if the car is driving by a computer? And then number 3 is the regulation, meaning the local transportation authority, are they going to approve it? Then you have the cybersecurity issue. And then you have the latency issue. Just now, before I start my presentation, I saw a sign on my screen saying your internet is unstable. So video conferencing, we're talking about this kind of quality, forget about driving autonomously. So I'm so excited about 5G that is coming because we built a lot of our technology on edge computing just because of the latency issue. But when you really look at adopting or technology disruption is never a single technology. It's the convergence, right? So we think about the smartphone disruption is because of the touch screen, digital imaging, the lithium-ion batteries, the sensors, all happened in the year of 2007 to make the smartphone disruption possible. So back to your question, the challenges for autonomous driving technology. The last but not the least is human adoption. So how many people are willing to really use it? Do they trust the technology? And really for the public transportation planning, for the city planners, when you unlock the ability for autonomous driving and you give that ability to individuals, imagine now 80% of your car's time sitting in the garage or parking lot. When you have the ability to send it basically everywhere all the time, your city is going to be congested. So asset sharing has to be fundamental for autonomous driving technology. Asset sharing used to be, everybody was sharing apps, sharing their homes, Airbnb, sharing the taxis. Due to the pandemic impact on the asset sharing business, we do not see that will go or catch up back to the business level again. So that's for the public transportation. For the geofence premises, we've seen that a lot of talks has happened, a lot of trials have happened, but now people are really willing to bet on their money and spend a little bit of investment upfront to use the technology. And the adoption really drives the development because you only get the feedback through trial and errors. And for new technologies, and people need to realize you won't come as perfect from day one. You have to invest in the hardware, in the time, in the operation to really see how it works. So it's exciting time for the geofence premises to adopt this technology, and you will release so much human labor just from driving repetitively from point to point, day in and day out. I'm sure, I mean, if you've done that job before, you know how painful it is. So it released the humans from doing creative work, and that's where I see the beauty of this technology.
Thank you so much, Wuran. Yeah, I think for cities to really want to move into autonomous technologies, I think a controlled rollout, I believe, is what you are have spoken about, having a controlled environment to start testing out all these technologies, rolling out probably routes that are more or less fixed, probably starting with buses, because they do not roam anywhere. They have a fixed route. So yeah, I think definitely something that city planners need to look into. Do we have anyone else that would like to touch on this question?
Mind if I offer a slightly orthogonal opinion on this one? Due respect, Wuran, all the great work that you do, right? So I think, Azhar, the point that you touched on is city planners or governments need to plan for these things, right? Either it be autonomous driving or the gig economy or any emerging new trend that comes up, right? And that's where I love Singapore and GeoWorks in particular, right? You guys recognize that there is a need for the government to get involved with how the physical landmass of Singapore is shown in the digital world in some way, right? And you do a bunch of good work. We are partners as well, right? So I think the city that chooses to introduce new technology also has people that contribute to building the technology, play an active role in participating in pushing that technology, and consume the technology, right? An example for Grab would be, right, there is a significant portion of our Southeast Asian population that is in some way provided a livelihood by Grab being a technology platform that is available, right? So when Grab makes a choice to deploy something like autonomous vehicles, we would have to weigh that against our social mission of creating 100 million entrepreneurs, right? Because we want to be in a position where we are not replacing humans just with technology. It does free them up for doing more creative things, absolutely. We want to bring up the level at which an individual is able to contribute, right? Grab actively engages in our driver communities and upskilling them, right? One area I'm very proud of is we have something called GeoStars, right? We go teach geospatial technology to drivers' kids, for instance, right? If that turns them into something else apart from a Grab driver, when they grow up, it'll make me extremely happy, right? So my point is that, while we are all technologists here, we love technology, right? I think cities and governments play this key role in balancing how much technology we push and get adopted versus how it impacts the citizen of that city, right? So that's just a point.
Just just to also add on to what Sriram just said, right? I mean, I think Muran also mentioned that data sharing today, we believe, I mean, at the moment, right, the whole transport industry, it's quite fragmented, right? And also the data sharing is not really happening. Imagine if, let's say, Grab, shares the data that's collected from their delivery, either the vehicle or the people, it all goes up to the city planner. Then so let's say it's even more necessity in case of the emergency and ambulances, right, where the city planner kind of has the complete data as to this is what is happening, there is some problem in the road, make way, we call it green wave, so make green wave for the ambulance, so that the whole stretch of the where the ambulance goes, it just becomes green automatically. So that's the power of data, so that the data has to be shared among the city planners, not only city planners, but also the operators, the logistics players, and also the application developers and all that. So it has to come together. So we've seen that happening. I mean, it's kind of started happening, but it has to happen at a broader level, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sriram. Thank you, Karthikeyan. Do we have anyone else that would like to give their comments on this?
It's an interesting topic, and I've seen some analysis of TNO, the Dutch research, where also GeoWorks, I think, also work with them, and they closely work together with the Singaporean government, where you see that it's a big challenge where the public and the private domain absolutely need to go hand in hand in looking at solutions and regulations from that perspective, but also where autonomous driving is not the solution per de facto to solve, for example, the traffic problems, if you don't see it in a bigger collective, bigger ecosystem where you have public transport, where you have sharing networks, where you have the Grabs of these world, and then also applying those autonomous vehicles in that ecosystems and what the impact is. So data sharing, what was already mentioned, is key, and planning from that point of view in the whole network is crucial. So I'm curious what it will bring in the coming years.
I think that's an important question of what will come in the coming years, especially when you look at different auto manufacturers and the OEMs themselves. They're all talking about autonomous driving and having these kind of capabilities. But the reality is there's going to be very different sets of capabilities across the vehicle lineup. Not every vehicle will be able to adapt to all the various driving conditions, the different driving scenarios that may exist. So one of the interesting questions that we have discussions with is on when you talk to the different car manufacturers, is what does the autonomous landscape look like for that specific model of vehicle or that specific trim level? It's not a blanket autonomous driving or a consistent autonomous driving experience. Depending on the vehicle's capabilities, what hardware exists, different trim levels may have different operating conditions, fog versus rain versus direct sunlight, different speeds that they can operate in. So the landscape from an autonomous driving point of view is going to be very different, almost almost at the individual trim level of within an automotive vehicle lineup. So the question then becomes, how do you visualize that world in a very customized way to allow for the maximum amount of autonomy for a vehicle to happen without it being having to rise to a certain minimum bar or a lowest common denominator approach? Because those are the options essentially. Either you have to hit a minimum bar or you go with the lowest common denominator approach for everybody. But with this view, you can have different vehicles operate in different scenarios. So it's going to be, I think, a fascinating world where even if you look at vehicles that are on the road right now, there's different speeds, there's different capabilities of off-road versus on-road, the kind of driving conditions that one can handle. I think that's going to continue into the autonomous world as well.
Thank you very much, Hossam, for that. So we're gonna open the floor to the audience to ask some questions. We have one question. What are the key unsolved problems in autonomous deliveries?
I think I would say, as to start with, right, for autonomous deliveries, first of all, I think like Vuran said also earlier, safety is important. And have we reached that safety protocol? Have we reached that stage today? I would say no, not yet. I think there are a lot of industrial consortiums out there testing this, something called the cellular V2X and all that. So vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to pedestrian, vehicle to infrastructure. So there are many variants here. We have to test everything, and it has to be step by step. And so there are industry bodies defining the standards, and also if you talk about networks and 5G, there's 3GPP, which is the one leading this pack. The safety standards are being set. If you say in the autonomous vehicle industry, there is ADAS. It's the autonomous or driver safety systems. So basically, it automatically feeds the data from the cloud. And also what's important is that the data has to be real time, and also the we call it precise localization. It has to be localized, the accuracy. So the data has to be within like few meters, or it could be few centimeters, to the level of that sort of accuracy we're talking about, so that it pinpoints exactly this person is walking across the road, the vehicle has to stop within this given time. So milliseconds of latency matters here. If you look at platooning, from our research, it says that they need to have some sort of 10 milliseconds latency. You cannot go beyond 10 milliseconds. If you look at autonomous vehicle, it has to be 3 milliseconds. So there is this one is that the industry is coming up with standards, and also one we are testing it. While the industry players are testing it, we're coming up with this kind of recommendations. So advanced driving requires 3 milliseconds. Sort of all this. The latency plays a key role in ensuring the safety, and so that's still developing. And that's where I would say that the standards have to develop fully, and I see that happening towards the end of the next year. Not this year. The standards started developing now, so by end of next year, hopefully it'll all be there.
Thank you, Karthikeyan. So I think definitely safety is a very, very key important factor when it comes to autonomy, be it transportation of humans or delivery of goods and products. And definitely having communications between entities, between vehicles to roads to people is also very, very crucial in all these machines to understand each other, where everything is at, and where to anticipate where things are moving. So we'll move on to the next question. So next question is on the topic of data sharing. What can the city do to encourage interoperability and coordination between services? Or I would probably maybe sum it up to what can, as a government agent, as a government agency or whole of government, what kind of data is critical in enabling such services, or autonomous services within a city?
Yeah, I'd like to take an example. There is something called Drive Sweden. It's in Sweden and Scandinavian countries. What they've come up with, it's a city planner. Obviously, it's the government that's funding this. So they kind of formulated the whole kind of ecosystem, or so to say. And there is, of course, the heart of the whole data sharing is there is an orchestration platform, technically speaking. But what's important is that get the necessary stakeholders, key stakeholders together, sit together and plan out how the data, what sort of data, how sensitive it is, can be shared. So Drive Sweden is one of the perfect example, and they are talking to already LTA here in Singapore. So I think recently, like 3 months ago, they signed some sort of an MOU. So that's kind of put sort of an example. Beside Drive Sweden, Singapore is the next country which is kind of trying to adapt to that. So the key stakeholders have to come together. So that's the only way, because technically you can do a lot of things, but unless it is driven by the government, it will go nowhere.
I think it's also an infrastructural answer to this question, where a lot of the players don't want to provide their data because they don't want to transfer their data to another system. So there needs to be a solution, a marketplace, a data marketplace, where stakeholders can provide their data, and data consumers that need to use that data can have access to that data, but not getting the ownership of that data. And there needs to be a consent in using that data. So consent management is an essential part to this solution, as I don't only see the bigger stakeholders providing data, but also the end user will be a crucial key player in providing that essential data. And then especially in Europe, that has been for years already, GDPR and data privacy. So without that access management and consent management, there is no scalable solution to it. So it's again a part that where technology will play a crucial role in.
Thank you for that, Xander. Yeah, I think it's probably crucial that not just the government plays a role, but I think the having the private sector to provide some of these data and having a common platform for data sharing. I think it's probably one of the way forward in providing a good platform or a good set of critical data sets in enabling AV to be realized. Okay, so with that, we've come to the end of this webinar. Thank you. I would like to say a big thank you to all our speakers. Thank you for taking part in our panel. So we have, before you leave, please check out our other webinars by scanning the QR code that we are flashing right now. And also join in our conversation using our hashtag SGGeoWeek. With that, a big thank you again to all our audience for tuning in. Thank you, and we look forward to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.